What happened to the girl that got pregnant in your high school? Story 1. Their parents made them get married. It didn't last a year past graduation. I heard she's on her fourth husband now. I had a friend in high school who got pregnant. Her boyfriend was a deadbeat high school dropout that cheated on her and left her for the woman he cheated with. She begged him back for like 3 or 4 months until he finally agreed. Then she accidentally fell pregnant like 2 months after they got back together and dropped out of high school. He ended up getting arrested either shortly before or after the baby was born and was in and out of prison for the next several years. She had a second kid a few years later. Not sure if it's the same or different baby daddy. Last I heard, she's obese, single, and works as a cashier in a store in our hometown. Story 2. She had been actively trying to get pregnant, and she was sleeping with multiple guys willing to help her. After she got pregnant, her 12-year-old sister decided to go that same route and was also successful in that. Their family didn't believe in abortion, so even the 12-year-old gave birth. Anyway, the older girl dropped out of high school to stay home taking care of the baby. I believe her parents were paying most of it. I ran into her like 4 years later. She was bad-mouthing the guy who got her pregnant, telling me how he wasn't paying enough child support, and how when he was 15 and slept with her that he knew she was trying to get pregnant, so he should have expected to be paying until the child was 18. I'm not implying she did not deserve child support, but I do want to imply both were too immature to make a choice to bring a baby into the world. He ended up also dropping out of school so he could work full-time, but he was working minimum wage trying to come up with child support. Whole situation was very sad to see. I do not know what happened to her little sister. My sister and the little sister had been close friends, but once getting pregnant, my uber-religious family forbade my sister from talking to her. Otherwise, I might have heard over the years. Story 3. I dropped out and moved 2,000 miles to be with the father. We married and had 2 more children. I stayed married to him for 10 years despite the abuse. We were both unhealed PPL, but he was a horrid father. After I left him, he did to our children what his parents did to him, and abandoned them. I've been raising them without his help, aside from a tiny amount of CS, for the last 9 years. Our oldest is now a legal adult, which is crazy to think about. She's older than I was when I got pregnant with her. My kids are doing great. I have a nice job and I work hard, but financially I'm stable. My job has nothing to do with my college degrees, LOL. I'm single and probably will remain so due to my own childhood trauma, which probably contributed to my teen pregnancy. Lots of therapy and self-work. Later, I'm happy as a clam. I'm a mold breaker, a breaker of chains, a generational trauma stopper. But I feel horrible as someone who hates my own last name. I ended up having 3 kids, who also hate their own last name. Crappy parents suck. Funny how those things play out. I educate my kids on many issues and try to help them make better choices. So far, so good. Other teen moms are doing pretty well too. 2 sets of high school sweethearts who are still together. 1 teen mom who ended up on drugs and lost her kids. We live in a good area and are fortunate to have resources available to us. Someday I'd like to get involved in programs to help other less fortunate single moms, as I know it's getting harder. I volunteer when I can and donate what I can. It's been a wild ride. Story 4. I'm the boyfriend and dad in that situation. My high school girlfriend and I were active and became parents at 16. Her folks were pretty religious and weird and kicked her out when they found out. There was a bunch of other stuff in that story too. Anyway, she lived with my family until she qualified for public housing our senior year of high school. We stayed together until we went to college. She really didn't know how to handle freedom. We really diverged there. She got into partying and developed a drug problem. One day, when our son was about 4, she just left. A friend with benefits of hers, who had been a good friend of mine, was at her apartment. She ran an errand and left our kid with the friend. Several hours later, the friend called my parents and said he didn't think she was coming back. A few weeks later, a letter showed up in the mail. She relinquished all of her parental rights and just walked away. Suddenly, I was a 20-year-old single parent of a 4-year-old with lots of help from my parents. Lots of court proceedings later, she didn't show. It was a done deal. I had to pay myself child support for many years, but I had sole custody. Funny story, I did actually have to pay myself. It was a nominal amount, $15 per week, but I had to write myself a check and deposit it every week to establish the paper trail. Once a year, I'd have to turn it in to show that I was receiving it from myself. Then I could get my tax refund. Anyway, I digress. Story 5. A few weeks after HS graduation, she married the guy. her BF, who got her pregnant. A few weeks afterwards, he joined the army and they together embarked on the most amazing adventure. Over the years, they've bounced from Alaska, Germany, Japan, and a few posts in the US. They raised an amazing young man as their son. Today, her hubby has retired from the army after 25 years of service to his country. They've retired to Alaska, and they're traveling the US and Canada. Story 6. We didn't have that issue at my high school, but I do know someone who got pregnant sophomore year of college. She dropped out at the end of the semester, had the baby, took care of it for a few months, until she could re-enroll, finish the degree, and is now doing very well working for a lab and co-parenting with the father. Her daughter's about 4 or 5 now, and they do fun outdoorsy things like camping, hiking, and paddleboarding all the time. Anyone would be lucky to have her as a parent. Story 7. There was one specific gal that got pregnant in my high school. There were several, maybe during sophomore year, not sure of the age. I remember seeing that baby at many high school functions, football games, concerts, etc., until she graduated, I think. We were in different grades, but I remember that child was like a full-on toddler the last time I saw her. This was a gal I wasn't friends with, and didn't really know, but the little girl appeared to be well cared for and loved. I'm assuming they're doing well. At least I hope so. I knew of other girls who had abortions and one that gave her baby up for adoption. I think about them from time to time. Story 8. 2 of these scenarios are where I am from. Contestant 1 lives in low-income housing still, came from a very poor family. She had one kid with a guy that ended up having a terrible meth addiction and goes in and out of sobriety. With being stressed and unhappy, she gained significant weight, and in turn her one child is also overweight. She has to deal with the consequences of early pregnancy and poor mate selection. Now for contestant 2, she came from a wealthy family here. She has 6 kids, all different fathers, some of which are in and out of jail. She lives in a house rent-free, which her grandmother owns. She also has help with childcare from family members. She has time to go to the gym because of this, and overall can afford healthier food, and has time to cook it because she doesn't have to work. She spends much of her time making Facebook posts, complaining about men or posts about her kids. The saddest thing about this is that both essentially made poor choices, and number 2 even went and had 5 more poor choices, and yet has a more quality life than one because money. Story 9. Friend of mine had a baby at 16. She didn't lose any friends and her family was supportive. She ended up starting her own business from home, and the kid is now grown up and in med school. Oh, and the important part, we live in a place where religious zealotry doesn't take precedence over the love of family. Real education is given in all schools, Planned Parenthood is well funded, and a place to get support, and, Plan being a parent, and state assistance programs make sure mom and baby are fed. I'm sure there are bad stories around here too, but I'm also sure there are less than most places. Story 10. It was me. I graduated 8 months pregnant, scrapped my college plans, and ended up getting a job as a receptionist at a doctor's office. Parents let me stay at home and help me. Worked my way up and learned a bunch about insurance billing in the process. At this point, I'm married, not to her dad, and have a home, 3 kids total, and 2 giant dogs. I work from home for a doctor that I respect, who pays me well. My daughter is now 19 and a college sophomore with her sights set on grad school. Felt the need to add my story since the rest seems so terrible. Story 11. When I was in high school, there was this girl whom I had known since kindergarten. She was my neighbor and was regarded as the most intelligent and beautiful girl. She was always used as an example of what a good girl should be. Anyway, one day I found out she was pregnant and I told my mom. My mom advised me not to speak ill of her. Basically, my mom spent 3 months in front of the kitchen window trying to see if she was pregnant. Her parents made her get married. He came from a challenging background, a different social background, and she was forced to live with him and his family in a rough neighborhood of the city. They had another child, so by the age of 23 she had 2 kids, and the oldest was 7 years old. It was a tragedy. She had basically wasted her intelligence, future, stuck with 2 kids in a difficult marriage, and divorced by the age of 23. She moved away and we lost contact. She has no social media or anything. However, one day I came across a document online, and her name was there. It turned out she was suing her old job or something. Later I found out that she had gone through a second divorce, had another kid, and by the age of 40 she had become a grandmother. So this girl, who was by all means a future bright star, was dimmed by the fact that she got pregnant at age 16 and forced to get married. Story 12. She got married to the father first, then divorced him and married some dumbass after that. I saw an interaction between her oldest kid and that second husband. He was going to take his son someplace fun, but the oldest son, by the other guy, couldn't go. This happened in a church parking lot. That oldest son ended up taking his own life. I think about that girl a lot. She was super popular in school. I don't think she was rich, but she was funny. She was a cheerleader that hung out with all the right people. She walked across the graduation stage pregnant. After that, she worked in a factory. It was hard work. Her looks went away. She always kept a positive outlook, but maybe that was just for everyone to see. She smoked and drank. I wonder how different it would have been had her mother actually raised her instead of her grandma, which happens a lot in these small towns. Story 13. I was that girl. Mom helped me with babysitting so I could finish high school. Then I worked and got married to my father. We had two more kids. We lived in poverty for the early years, but eventually worked our way up to middle class. Their father sadly passed away in a car accident a few years ago. That was rough. The high school baby is now 21. He still lives at home, but he is a great kid that helps anyone who needs it. He pays rent and helps around the house. My middle child is in college on a full scholarship, and my youngest is still in high school and excels in culinary and math. She has a lot of promise, but also reminds me way too much of myself at that age. Fingers crossed, she doesn't get pregnant. Story 14. I am that girl. I got pregnant at 16. I was an addict. My then boyfriend at that time, father of my child also. We got high together, then skipped school and spent time mostly on the street. My mom told me that if I won't go to an abortion, I should move away from her place. I packed my things and moved. I stopped doing drugs. The father of my child did not. It only got worse, and he started abusing me. I left him when our son was 2 months old. Went through some toxic relationship and had some hard times. For a long time, I was broke AF and had nothing. For 5 years, I had 3 jobs. But I graduated, and now I have a good job, own living, kind partner for 5 years. And as a most important, I have a son I can be proud of. He was and still is my biggest motivation to go further and learn how to be a better person. It was the best thing that could have happened to me. I have to thank God for all of it and for everything good in my life right now. Story 15. She bullied me, so IMO she deserved it. She never went to school again and never had a job. Her baby daddy never married her. He had a minimum wage job, and that was it. She occasionally visits her parents for a long period of time, probably because her baby daddy sometimes has enough of her crap and kicks her out. She can't drive a car or anything useful. I went to law school and work in court now and have a loving relationship with my fiancé, and we'll marry each other next year with a big celebration and start our life together in good jobs, and we'll have kids when we want them, and we surely can afford more than just the basics for them. I once met her mom, and she was obviously so jealous of my life and that her own daughter made nothing out of it. I would have empathy, but her mom once drove over my foot when I was a child and tried to hide it. So yeah, I do not have empathy at all. Story 16. Hi, I was the girl who got pregnant in high school, my sophomore year. Am I able to answer? I ended up switching schools and going to a different school downtown that had a program specifically for pregnant girls and a daycare. After I had my son, I was able to go to all my classes with the other students. I had a class period each day and lunch to spend with my son. My son was 2 when I graduated, 6 months early. He's 5 now and in kindergarten. He's super smart and I'm so proud of him. I'm slowly working my way up the ladder in a factory job, getting paid nearly $30 an hour and planning on starting college soon. I'm so thankful for the resources I have or had and proud of myself for how well I'm doing now. Story 17. She has 4 sons by 4 different fathers and 2 girls by the same man. First son was born when she was 14 or 15. She currently lives in a 2-bed apartment with all 6 kids and all the fathers left. She's on welfare. And last I checked, was hoping to have another so she can have more checks come in. She admits that her religion keeps her having kids, and that most nights the kids don't eat even with the food stamps. Every time one of the fathers shows up, all the kids are dolled up, and she is dressed to the nines. The kids range in age from 15 to 2 years old. The 15-year-old son knocked up some girl, and now they plan on moving into this apartment with the mother. But the government checks keep on coming. She's 30 now and wants like 4 more kids, so she won't have to work. It's a hot mess of shame. Story 18. She was one of my best friends. She got pregnant at 16 and worked really hard to graduate early, which she did. She lived with her mom and stepdad who provided housing and childcare. Her much older sister and her dad and stepmother were a huge help financially as well. After graduating, she went through a 2-year vet tech program. At 38, she met a fantastic guy and married him at 40. They just had a baby. They rescue dogs and live a lovely life. Goes to show that if a young pregnant person has a great support network and is encouraged and loved unconditionally, that teen pregnancy doesn't have to be life-ending. She also wanted the baby a whole lot. Abortion was an easily accessed option for her, but she felt she could handle being a mom. We don't talk about a lot, but I'm proud of her to this day. Story 19. She was pregnant at 16. Baby daddy #1 for kids, 1 and 3, and baby daddy #2 for her second. She hooked up with baby daddy #2 because #1 was in prison for drugs. When #1 came out, she went back to him, and they both leached off. #2 cause he had money. #1 physically abused her, and #2 either enabled her drug habits, used her for fun, or just gave her money whenever she came calling. She eventually got hooked on heroin and lost custody of her kids. Her mom has custody of kids 1 and 3, and a sister has custody of a second kid, half Native American. The sister just wanted the money, and the father wanted nothing to do with the kid. Baby daddy #1 got out again and tried to parent his kids, but they didn't really have a connection with him. Shocker. So he went back to prison and out again and is single father to another child with baby mama #2. She is in jail for drugs and he's living with her parents. Story 20. Dropped out in the 11th grade, got a GED and went to work full-time. Moved out at 17 before the baby was born. Moved around a lot. Learning to support 2 is easier than 3. Baby daddy out of the picture by the time he was 5. He's a horrible person. Ask my now adult son. Got Norplant. Again, 2 versus 3. Didn't keep in touch with people from high school. People don't want to associate with you. They believe it's contagious or you have no moral compass. Was lonely a lot of times. It's not easy, but can be done. To have multiple children and make already lean or tough times harder is irresistible emo. Having lived it. Story 21. One successfully raised her child alone until she got married to a different guy and had 2 more kids with him. Got divorced, got together with someone else who got her pregnant, and she lost that baby but got pregnant again. Then right before giving birth, she found out he was texting and trying to take advantage of a teenage girl, so they split. Now she is with a recovered addict who her sister met in rehab, and they seem happy. The other girl who got pregnant just had baby number 7. She stuck with that guy through baby 5, then divorced him and married someone that's gotta be 20 years older, and they had babies 6 and 7 together. They seem happy. Story 22. I believe she was 16 at that time. She stopped attending classes, and that's when rumors spread in my school like wildfire. I remember I was in junior year at that time. She got pregnant on her senior year. She didn't attend the graduation. She denied the rumors. She even posted on Facebook that she's going to file a lawsuit against everyone who spread the news that she's pregnant. Her son is 12 years old now. I heard that she didn't go to college and she's a single mom now. She was my enemy back in high school. She and her friends bullied me. She spread gossip around the school about me, which is not true. Her ex-boyfriend, Louis, her son's father, was my friend or classmate. She was so jealous when I talked to him, or even went near him, literally. She was so obsessed with him. Like, insanely obsessed. I'm not the only victim of her bullying. I know there are also 2 or 3 more girls in our school that she bullied because of jealousy. Story 23. She's my sister and her friends. They all had kids like they were accessories. None of them are doing good. They're all stuck in abusive cycles and refuse to actually help themselves in any way. I just recently went no contact with my sister permanently after leaving me over 8 hours from anything at a tiny little Arby's, after finding out our abusive and trashy father had cancer. He died a month later. She brought her 5-year-old with her who ended up hating me because I was insanely upset about my father dying the same way my stepdad died when I was a young child, and I'm not good with kids due to my childhood. And I have practically screamed this in her face since before she ever had kids, and she still always would put her parental pressure on me when I was around and would trap me into helping her with kids I never agreed to help with. I love the kids, but I cannot be a part of their lives the way I wish I could. I'm unstable. I need help before I can be a valid, healthy adult in their lives, but my sister would pressure me into babysitting and crap last minute, when I had no other choice or else she'd scream at me. Her first baby daddy died of drugs. She had that kid to spite my parents. She planned a pregnancy to spite my parents at 15 years old. They're all incredibly unstable. It showed me how little I respect people who care so little about the people around them, to that extent. I don't trust people now. I have a new family that has taken me in. Being accepted even when I'm not very friendly right off the bat by this new family is incredibly heartwarming, but equally jarring. I feel like kindness has an expiration date because of the crappy people I came from,